Welcome to a journey that will take you to the darkest corners of history. From the eerie halls of the Tower of London to the bone-chilling depths of the Paris Catacombs, we're visiting some of the most haunted places on Earth. These locations are steeped in centuries of tragedy, death, and lingering spirits. So, if you're ready for tales of restless souls and unsettling histories, buckle up. Because after hearing about these places, you might think twice before visiting them yourself. The haunted history of the Tower of London. The Tower of London is one of the most infamous and haunted places in the world. Its history stretches back over a millennium, and it has seen centuries of royal intrigue, political imprisonment, executions, and mysterious disappearances. With so many lives lost and spirits unrested, the tower has earned its reputation as one of the most haunted places on Earth. Constructed by William the Conqueror in 1078 as a symbol of his dominance over the newly conquered land of England, the tower has since served many purposes: a royal residence, a treasury, an armory, and, most notably, a prison. Its infamous nickname, the Bloody Tower, is no exaggeration. Many political prisoners, traitors, and enemies of the crown were imprisoned here, often meeting grisly fates. The tower's walls have witnessed acts of treachery, betrayal, and brutal punishment. Throughout the centuries, countless souls have perished within its walls, and many believe that not all of them have moved on. The spirits of the tower are as much a part of its history as the kings and queens who once called it home. Perhaps the most famous spirit said to roam the tower is that of Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII. Accused of treason, adultery, and incest, Anne was sentenced to death and executed at the tower in 1536. Her execution was carried out by a French swordsman specially brought in to ensure a swift and clean beheading, an unusual measure of mercy from her husband. Witnesses have reported seeing Anne's ghost wandering the tower, particularly near the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, where her body was buried. The most spine-chilling sightings involve her ghostly figure appearing without her head, carrying it in her arms. There are frequent reports of her ghost appearing in the room where she spent her final days before execution, replaying the haunting moments of her tragic end. One of the most striking encounters occurred in the 19th century when a soldier stationed at the tower saw a white figure moving toward him in the dead of night. As it approached, he realized it was a woman, and when he challenged her, she continued forward. In terror, the soldier charged with his bayonet, only to have it pass right through her ghostly form. One of the tower's darkest mysteries is the tale of the princes in the tower, a tragic story that has captivated historians and paranormal investigators alike. In 1483, 12-year-old Edward V and his 9-year-old brother, Richard, Duke of York, were placed in the tower by their uncle, Richard III, supposedly for their protection. However, the boys disappeared soon after, never to be seen again. It is widely believed that they were murdered, and two skeletons discovered in 1674 beneath a staircase in the tower are thought to belong to the princes. Many have claimed that the spirits of the young princes still haunt the tower. Witnesses report hearing the sounds of children laughing and playing, or sometimes crying, late at night. The apparitions of two small boys in nightgowns have been seen holding hands and wandering through the tower grounds. The mysterious disappearance of the princes has remained one of England's greatest unsolved mysteries, and their restless spirits are said to appear from time to time, seeking peace that has eluded them for centuries. Another tragic figure who haunts the tower is Lady Jane Grey, often referred to as the 9-Day Queen. At just 16 years old, Lady Jane was placed on the throne in a desperate political move to keep England Protestant following the death of King Edward VI. Her reign was short-lived, as she was deposed by Mary I, also known as Bloody Mary, and imprisoned in the tower. In 1554, Lady Jane was executed for treason. She was beheaded on Tower Green, and her ghost has reportedly been seen wandering the battlements and in the vicinity of the execution site. One of the most famous sightings of Lady Jane occurred in 1957 when two guards claimed to have seen a white figure slowly walking across the battlements. When they approached, the figure vanished into thin air. Her story is one of youthful innocence tragically cut short by political maneuvering, and her ghost is said to still roam the tower, caught in the final moments of her brief and ill-fated reign. Sir Walter Raleigh, the famous explorer and courtier, spent 13 years imprisoned in the Tower of London. Although Raleigh was initially a favorite of Queen Elizabeth I, his fortunes turned when he fell out of favor with King James I. Raleigh was accused of treason and locked away in the Tower, where he wrote many of his works and even raised his son. During his long imprisonment, Raleigh was housed in relatively comfortable quarters in the Tower's Bloody Tower, and it is here that his ghost has been seen by multiple witnesses. His apparition is often described as restless, perhaps reflecting the years he spent pacing the floors, plotting his escape, or dwelling on his eventual fate. After being released briefly to lead an expedition to the New World, Raleigh returned to the Tower for a second time, only to be executed in 1618. His restless spirit, it seems, has never fully departed from the place of his confinement. A lesser known, but no less eerie, ghost story from the Tower involves the White Lady. Her apparition has been seen near the White Tower, one of the oldest and most prominent buildings within the complex. She is often described as wearing a long white gown and appearing forlorn or weeping. Some believe she may be the spirit of a woman who died of heartbreak or betrayal within the Tower, while others suggest she could be connected to one of the many unsolved deaths and murders that have taken place over the centuries. Visitors have reported smelling a strong, overpowering perfume in the area where the White Lady has been seen, even when there is no one around. The scent is said to linger for minutes after her apparition disappears, leaving those who encounter it with a feeling of unease. With such a long and brutal history, it's no surprise that the Tower of London has become a hub for paranormal investigations. Numerous ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts have explored its ancient corridors, seeking evidence of the supernatural. The Tower has featured on countless television shows, including Most Haunted and Ghost Hunters International, where investigators have attempted to capture ghostly phenomena on film. The Tower offers nighttime ghost tours for the brave and curious, where guides recount the chilling tales of the Tower's most famous spirits. These tours often focus on the most haunted spots, such as the Chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, where many of the Tower's victims were buried, the Bloody Tower, and the execution sites on Tower Green. Participants frequently report strange occurrences during these tours, including sudden drops in temperature, unexplained sounds, and even sightings of shadowy figures or ghostly faces peering out from the Tower's many windows. Even today, the Tower of London's haunted reputation persists. Every year, new reports surface from both tourists and staff who experience unsettling encounters within its walls. From flickering lights to ghostly figures appearing in photographs, the Tower's paranormal activity shows no signs of slowing down. For those brave enough to visit, the Tower of London offers not just a glimpse into England's storied past, but also the chance to encounter one of the many spirits that still linger in its darkened hallways. The Tower of London remains a place where history and the supernatural collide, and whether you're interested in its royal past or its ghostly present, it's a site that continues to captivate and terrify visitors from around the world. Let's dive into the next haunted location, the Catacombs of Paris. Deep beneath the bustling streets of Paris lies a world entirely different from the beauty and romance for which the city is famous. This underground labyrinth, known as the Catacombs of Paris, stretches for miles, housing the remains of over 6 million people. Originally created to address the issue of overflowing cemeteries in the late 18th century, the catacombs have since become one of the most eerie and haunted places on Earth. Its dark corridors, filled with neatly stacked bones and skulls, are not only a macabre reminder of the past but are also home to numerous paranormal occurrences that have left visitors and explorers shaken to their core. In the late 1700s, Paris faced a growing problem: its cemeteries were overflowing. The city's population had grown rapidly, and the dead were outnumbering the living. The Cimetière des Innocents, one of the largest cemeteries in Paris at the time, had become so full that the ground beneath it could no longer support the weight of the corpses. Bodies were being buried on top of one another, and it wasn't long before the surrounding areas began to experience the horrific consequences of such overcrowding. The stench of death filled the air, and disease began to spread as rotting remains contaminated the soil and water supply. In 1780, a rainstorm caused a mass grave at the Cimetière des Innocents to collapse, sending corpses into the neighboring streets. This was the final straw for city officials, who were forced to act quickly to prevent further public health crises. The solution was radical yet practical. The remains from the city's overflowing cemeteries would be moved underground to the abandoned limestone quarries beneath Paris, which had been mined since Roman times. In 1786, the process of transferring the bones began. Night after night, long processions of carts filled with the skeletal remains of Parisians made their way through the city streets. The bones were taken to the quarries and meticulously stacked along the walls to form what would eventually become the Catacombs of Paris. Over the next several decades, more bones were added, until the remains of over 6 million people were housed in this underground ossuary. The very nature of the catacombs, being the final resting place for millions of Parisians, lends itself to an unsettling atmosphere. Visitors describe an overwhelming feeling of dread as they descend into the depths of the earth, and it's not uncommon for people to experience intense feelings of claustrophobia, even in the wider sections of the tunnels. The haunting silence is broken only by the occasional drip of water or the echo of footsteps, creating an oppressive sense that you are not alone. It's no surprise that the catacombs have become a focal point for paranormal enthusiasts and ghost hunters. Over the years, numerous reports of supernatural encounters have emerged, with many visitors and explorers claiming to have witnessed unexplainable events within the dark, twisting corridors. One of the most common phenomena reported in the catacombs is the sound of disembodied voices echoing through the tunnels. Visitors often claim to hear whispered conversations, even when no one else is nearby. Some say they've heard the voices of children giggling, while others report hearing mournful cries that seem to come from deep within the walls. These eerie sounds have left many visitors terrified, and those who have ventured into the more remote parts of the catacombs often speak of hearing footsteps behind them, only to turn and find no one there. There are also numerous reports of ghostly apparitions. Some witnesses claim to have seen shadowy figures darting between the bone-lined walls, while others describe full-bodied apparitions of people dressed in old-fashioned clothing, wandering the tunnels as though lost. One of the most famous apparitions is that of a man dressed in a tattered, 18th-century military uniform. He is often seen standing at the entrance to the catacombs, as though guarding the passageway to the world of the dead. In one particularly chilling account, a group of urban explorers reported seeing a woman in a white gown wandering the tunnels late at night. They followed her, calling out to her, but she didn't respond. As they drew closer, the woman suddenly vanished, leaving the explorers stunned and frightened. Later, they learned that a woman matching her description had been buried in one of the cemeteries whose remains were transferred to the catacombs. Perhaps the most famous paranormal story associated with the catacombs is that of an urban explorer who ventured too far into the maze-like tunnels and was never seen again. In the early 1990s, a man known only as Philippe set out to explore the catacombs with a small group of fellow adventurers. Philippe was an experienced explorer, well versed in the dangers of the underground world, but on this particular expedition, something went terribly wrong. According to the accounts of his companions, Philippe became separated from the group after taking a wrong turn in one of the deeper, more dangerous sections of the catacombs. Despite their efforts to find him, Philippe vanished without a trace. Search teams were dispatched, but they were unable to locate him, and eventually, the search was called off. Several years later, a group of filmmakers exploring the catacombs discovered a video camera lying in the dirt in one of the more remote sections of the tunnels. To their astonishment, the footage on the camera showed Philippe wandering aimlessly through the tunnels, growing increasingly frantic as he realized he was lost. In the final moments of the footage, strange sounds can be heard in the background, unearthly whispers and distant moans, as Philippe's breathing becomes more panicked. The footage ends abruptly, and Philippe is never seen again. This chilling discovery has only added to the mystique of the catacombs, with many believing that Philippe's spirit may still be wandering the tunnels, trapped in the underground maze that claimed his life. Over the years, many visitors have reported seeing faces appear in the walls of the catacombs. These faces, seemingly carved into the very stone, are often described as grotesque and twisted, with wide, staring eyes and gaping mouths. Some believe these faces are the result of natural erosion, but others are convinced they are manifestations of the tormented souls trapped within the catacombs. In one particularly terrifying encounter, a group of tourists on a guided tour reported seeing a face slowly emerge from the wall, as though it were being pushed out by an invisible force. The face, described as pale and skeletal, seemed to be in agony, its eyes wide with fear. The apparition lasted only a few seconds before fading back into the wall, but the group was so shaken by the experience that they immediately left the catacombs and refused to return. Another unsettling phenomenon reported in the catacombs is the appearance of strange symbols and markings on the walls. These markings, often found in the more remote sections of the tunnels, have been described as ancient runes or occult symbols, though their origin remains a mystery. Some believe these symbols are the work of long-forgotten cults who once used the catacombs for dark rituals, while others suggest they may be remnants of the ancient Roman quarries that predate the ossuary. Today, the catacombs of Paris are a popular tourist destination, drawing thousands of visitors each year. However, only a small section of the tunnels is open to the public. The rest of the catacombs, known as the Forbidden Zone, is off-limits to all but the most daring urban explorers. Despite the risks, many adventurers continue to venture into these uncharted areas, hoping to uncover hidden secrets or perhaps catch a glimpse of the paranormal. The official tours of the catacombs focus primarily on the history of the site, offering visitors a chance to see the neatly stacked bones and learn about the city's attempts to manage its dead in the 18th and 19th centuries. However, for those with a fascination for the supernatural, the catacombs offer much more than a lesson in history. Many who visit leave with stories of strange occurrences, from the sound of footsteps in empty corridors to the feeling of unseen hands brushing against them as they walk through the narrow tunnels. The catacombs of Paris remain one of the most haunted places in the world, a labyrinth of death and mystery that continues to captivate and terrify those who dare to enter. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, there is no denying the chilling atmosphere that permeates the catacombs, nor the countless stories of strange and unexplainable phenomena that have emerged from its depths. As you wander through the narrow passageways lined with bones, it's hard not to feel the weight of the millions of souls who have been laid to rest here. And while most visitors leave the catacombs with nothing more than a sense of awe at the sheer scale of the ossuary, some leave with something far more chilling, a lingering feeling that they were not alone, that the dead were watching, and perhaps even following them. If you've made it through these spine-chilling tales, you've traveled to some of the darkest corners of the globe. But remember, these places never truly rest. If you enjoyed exploring the world's most haunted locations, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Who knows, one of these restless spirits might be closer than you think. Until next time, stay curious and stay brave.